Hi, Tim Hart here with Forest Applications Training, bringing you another Tim's Tips. This time I want to discuss a little bit about what your two-cycle engine is drinking. Today it's getting more and more important to know what you're feeding your two-cycle engine, your chainsaws and your trimmers. If you go and look back a few years, fuel was pretty stable. And today it's pretty stable too, but it takes some stabilizing. Today's fuels contain ethanol. Ethanol is very good to have in your fuel. It reduces the amounts of emissions, but it also increases some chances of picking up moisture. In your chainsaw or trimmer today, moisture is not a friend. You need to think about reducing the chances of having any moisture around magnesium or around aluminum, and many of your chainsaw and trimmer parts are that way. Alcohol fuel can corrode aluminum that can stop up and erode your carburetors. So what should we do to limit the chances of problems with our two-stroke equipment? Think about the fuels that we're using. If you have one or more of the following issues, you may need to think about corrective actions. If you notice that your trimmer or saw is hard to start or will not start, if your saw or trimmer idles unevenly, doesn't accelerate quickly, runs away at full throttle, takes a long time to return to idle once you release the throttle trigger, if your fuel lines are gummy or hard and cracking, if your saw or trimmer blows a lot of smoke, yes, you may have a fuel problem. Chances are pretty high today that your fuel you're buying at your local station may have as much as 10% and possibly more ethanol in its blend. I received a call recently from a friend who's having a hard time starting his chainsaw. Recently he had purchased a new supply of fuel and had mixed it properly to the specifications of the manufacturer's oil. The issue was when he'd hit the throttle, the engine wouldn't rev. It would bog down and then go up in RPM. I suggested opening the carb adjustment screws slightly, low speed and high speed, to see if that reduced the problem. Evidently the new gas purchase had a higher volume of ethanol than his previous fuel. Ethanol can cause the carburetor to run a little leaner, and this would cause a slow upturn in the RPM when the throttle is applied, or a hesitation. Basically, the fuel was set too lean to allow acceleration when the throttle was applied. Alcohol in the fuel requires richer settings to maintain power. In two-cycle engines, fuel flow can also relate to lubrication. It takes a more open counterclockwise adjustment of the screws to allow more fuel and also lubrication to be applied. Most carburetors will adjust 10% to 12% alcohol or ethanol blends. Anything over 10 to 12% may not be regulated with the carburetors that you have on your equipment. So it's important that we take a look at reducing the ethanol volume. Bottom line is you may want to try to locate a fuel supply without ethanol in the blend. One of the easiest ways to ensure an ethanol-free blend is to use a bottled fuel such as True Fuel. They produce a pre-mixed 40-to-1 and 50-to-1 fuel mix that works great in most all trimmers and chainsaws. True Fuel is in special 1-quart fuel cans. This means no fuel cans are needed and no mixing. The correct mixture of fuel and stabilizer is already pre-mixed in the can. It's properly mixed fuel and 2-year shelf life. Is ready for your two-cycle engines. True Fuel is also higher in octane than many pump gases. This means that your equipment will run cooler, more power, less chance of detonation. Also, it'll make sure that you have sufficient lubrication for long life on your chainsaws and trimmers. Octane, a lot of people have questions about. Octane is the ability or a smooth burn of fuel under compression. And so high octane on a high compression engine will afford you the ability to reduce a lot of detonation and wear situations from heat. It burns a lot cooler. So you want to make sure that you have the highest octane without any type of ethanol, if at all possible. Manufacturers specify no more than 10% ethanol blends, 0 ethanol if at all possible. Mix correctly with approved mixing oils. Stabilize if the mix oil doesn't already have stabilizer, and make sure that it is not stored for more than 30 days. And anytime you store it, use a good airtight fuel can specified for use. Thanks for watching this episode of Tim's Tips from Forest Application Training. And we want to thank you for all of your participation. If you've enjoyed this episode of Tim's Tips, please subscribe and press that like button on our YouTube channel. We hope someday to share tips in person along the Forest Apps Road.